Shocking truth revealed: how premarital sex can wreck your spiritual journey. Few knew what truly happened that night in the dusty village of Galilee. The sky hung heavy with an unnatural stillness. Murmurs spread like wildfire, igniting hearts with fear and curiosity. What was it that had unfolded in the shadows? Only the flickering lanterns illuminated the anxious faces around the small bonfire. The air felt thick, electric. That in a modest wooden hut, a young woman named Miriam sat in solitude, tears streaming down her cheeks. Her heart pounded as memories of her secret rendezvous flooded her mind. Burdened by guilt, she could still feel the warmth of his hand, a flame that would scorch her spirit. She had been told to wait, to cherish, to abide by the sacred laws given to her people. Yet, the forbidden kiss had bewitched her senses and left her soul aching. This was not just another village tale, it held weight, historical depth rooted in ancient traditions. Centuries ago, the Israelites had wrestled with spiritual integrity, craving a connection to the divine while wrestling with their desires. The tension between flesh and faith was palpable. God's chosen people, wandering in search of identity, knew the heavy cost of disregard for sacred vows. That in the town square, whispers echoed. "Did you hear?" One woman gasped. "The elders have grown uneasy. They claim the village has been cursed." A gasp rippled through the crowd, widening eyes glimmering with both intrigue and terror. Was their community's suffering tied to Miriam's tragic choice? The air turned icy as the unthinkable hovered overhead. Some began speaking of signs, omens that foretold doom unless the sin was confronted. Miriam felt the weight of their judgment, a cold shiver racing down her spine. She was not just facing her shame, she was becoming the embodiment of a larger conflict. The flickering flames danced like her troubled thoughts, creating shadows that loomed larger than life. Many parents with hushed voices debated whether it was too late for their children. Would they follow in Miriam's footsteps, courting their disaster? And then, in the still of the night, a heart-stopping revelation. A sudden scream pierced the Tenzion. A young child collapsed, the villagers frozen in disbelief. What did this mean? A chilling omen? The very air crackled with uncertainty and dread. Hope and despair danced together, each look shared between neighbors heightening the unease. Could confronting their fears lead them to salvation, or would it push them deeper into a pit of despair? Miriam's heart raced. Could she muster the courage to break the spell of silence? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The village remained shrouded in a cloak of fear, even the stars above seemed to dim, casting a muted light upon the stillness below. In the aftermath of the child's fall, the elders gathered, their hushed voices weaving through the air like thick smoke, suffocating any room left for hope. It was clear they needed to find answers, to seek guidance from the very source from which their laws were born. Miriam, still sitting alone in her darkened hut, felt their gaze upon her. The weight of a shared community sin pressed firmly on her young shoulders. They all believed her actions, her choices, had catalyzed the calamity. As she looked up toward the flickering lanterns casting silhouettes upon her walls, she wondered if any of them could see beyond the surface of her guilt. Did they question their own hearts, or was she the sole sinner among them? Night after night, she replayed the past, the thrilling moments filled with whispered promises and forbidden touches. Those memories were now tainted with remorse, as she grappled not only with personal shame but with the collective burden of her village. What did it mean to be a part of a community bound by faith and fear? Was her desire for connection powerful enough to shake the foundations of that faith, or was it merely her own naivete that had brought this darkness upon them all? As dawn approached, a soft light began to seep through the cracks of her wooden door. Miriam felt a stirring within her. What if she could break the silence? Her heart raced at the thought of standing before her neighbors, her voice quaking as she confessed not just her transgressions but the deeper yearning for love and understanding that drove her into the shadows. But what was love? Was it a beacon guiding toward God, or an enticing deception drawing her into chaos? The stories told by her mother spoke of pure love-off union blessed by the heavens. Yet here she sat, bearing witness to the unsettling consequences of her choices. All around her, the village lay immersed in the weight of their collective sin, torn between the ancient laws set in place by generations past and the visceral pull of human desire. Would her confession inspire healing or invoke even greater wrath from her neighbors? Would the act of revealing her heart lift her burden or worsen their fate? The air felt heavy with impending decisions, each breath a reminder of the uncertainty enveloping her spirit. As she made her way outside, the hushed murmurs had turned into a frenzy of anxious whispers. The elders had called for a gathering to address the ominous signs that chilled their bones. With every step towards the town square, she felt the weight of destiny poised on the precipice. Would she emerge as a scapegoat or a catalyst for change? Was her path toward redemption lined with confession, or did the true journey lie in understanding the very nature of love, sin, and the community that had both sheltered and suffocated her? As Miriam approached the gathering, a new thought entered her mind. What if confronting the truth created a path not only for her redemption but for all who struggled in the shadows of their own sins? Could this moment of reckoning spark a light that would burn away the darkness they all feared? The village square buzzed with an electric tension, the kind that can only settle in a place burdened by unspoken truths. Miriam stood at the edge, her heart pounding like a drum against the backdrop of anxious whispers. The elders, faces etched with worry and severity, commanded attention as they took their places upon a raised platform, their stature amplifying the authority they wielded in their community. As she took a deep breath, Miriam thought about the weighty words of the elders. Today, they spoke not only of the child's fall but of gathering strength from faith and the need to purge the village of its sins. Yet, what exactly constituted sin? In moments of contemplation, every feeling she had ever known, joy, love, desire, became clouded by this pervasive sense of guilt. Could the purity of love ever truly coexist with the heaviness of transgression, or were they eternally at odds? As she listened closer, she discerned that the elders were speaking not of individuals, but of the whole village, as though they were a single entity entrapped by sin. "We are consumed by darkness," one elder cried, his voice heavy as stone. "Repentance must unite us, lest our iniquity spread like a contagion." Miriam flinched at the words. It felt as though he directed them at her, the one who had dared to deviate from the path they had laid. And yet, was she not also part of the community? Did they not all share in the contradictions of love and faith? Her mind raced with the notion that perhaps their collective despair was rooted deeper than she had ever considered. "Gather your souls," another elder intoned, invoking an urgency that pulled at Miriam. "For the skies above have dimmed, and our hearts must seek the light of the Almighty. Purification awaits, but it demands our truth." At that moment, something inside Miriam began to shift. How could they move forward into the light without exploring the layers of their shared existence? What would it mean to confront their experiences, their desires, their very humanity? Would they truly find redemption in weaving further layers of shame upon themselves? Or was it possible that it lay in understanding their shared vulnerability as a community? With each tick of her heartbeat, her resolve grew. What if she stood before them and unveiled her heart, her longing for connection, and her experiences? What if she shared the love that had once seemed pure but now lay cloaked in the burden of guilt? She could feel their tension as they awaited clarity, but instead of clarity, she wished to offer the complexity of their existence. The thoughts swirled within her as the elders began leading them in prayer. They called upon the divine to heal their pain, to act as a balm for their suffering. "May truth cleanse us," they intoned in unison, while Miriam remembered a passage her mother often recited, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." Was that true freedom found only in the eyes of the divine, or did it exist amidst the struggle of their shared life? Could their community benefit from the acknowledgement of their imperfections rather than their dismissal? As the prayers settled around her, comforted yet still tormented, Miriam found herself stepping forward. The weight of destiny pressed harder upon her, a call to reveal not only her own life but to shine a light upon the hidden truths of all. But in that fervent moment of resolve, a shudder of uncertainty coursed through her. Was she brave enough to unravel the fabric of fear that encased them? What if the admission of her love brought destruction rather than liberation? And as her heart battled between trepidation and hope, one question encircled her thoughts: in the search for redemption, how could they embrace their humanity without drowning in the guilt of love? As the prayer echoed through the square, the assembled villagers inhaled deeply, the air thick with anticipation and apprehension. Miriam stood at the precipice of revelation, her heart a wild tempest of yearning and fear. The elders' voices faded into the backdrop of her racing thoughts, and all she could feel was the heaviness of the moment pressing down like a weight upon her chest. From the crowd emerged Jethro, a young man whom Miriam had known since childhood, his eyes bright with the fire of youth yet shadowed by uncertainty. He approached her slowly, his gaze piercing through the veil of tension that surrounded them. "Miriam," he whispered, "if you speak your truth, countless hearts may follow. But are you prepared for the consequences?" His words resonated deeply within her, and she found herself grappling with the myriad paths that lay before her. To reveal the complexities of love and desire was to tear open a wound in their community, but it was also a chance to foster healing. Could exposing their collective struggles really lead to freedom, or would it plunge them deeper into despair? The elders had recounted the tales of old, of when communities flourished in honesty and mutual understanding, yet Miriam could not shake the feeling that they had forgotten the essence of those stories. Those who were considered righteous in society often kept their flaws cloaked in silence, fearing that exposure would strip them of their standing. She sensed a darkness that ran far deeper than the sins of individuals. It was rooted in their refusal to embrace the complicated nature of human experience. As Jethro studied her, she knew he awaited her decision with bated breath, wondering what weight her choice would carry for them both. A part of her longed to reach out, to acknowledge their shared bond in the face of adversity. What if we are not alone in our struggles? She dared to muse aloud, echoing her earlier thoughts. What if our unspoken truths bind us rather than separate us? With each heartbeat, Miriam felt a flicker of strength, a kindling resolve urging her to ignite the discourse that the village so desperately needed. She envisioned the faces of her fellow villagers, some filled with righteous conviction and others shadowed by doubt. Would they find solace in unveiling their struggles? Would they see that falling in love, in desire, in all its complexities was, at its core, a reflection of their divine nature? Jethro's hand found hers, grounding her in the moment. "They may fear you, Miriam," he warned. "But they will also hear you. And the truth you carry is powerful enough to shatter silence." In that moment, a glimmer of realization dawned upon Miriam, a profound understanding that to ignite hope, one needed to mirror the divine's embrace of unconditional love. Her heart steadied as she prepared to speak, ready to challenge the hushed morality that tied the villagers' hearts in chains of shame. "Village of my heart," she began, her voice unsteady but growing stronger with each syllable. The crowd turned toward her, their collective gaze a mixture of scrutiny and intrigue. "We stand here, shrouded in a darkness of our own making, believing that silence will protect us from judgment. But in silence, we stifle our spirits and deny each other the chance to heal." As she spoke, she could feel the weight of generations behind her, urging her to continue. "Love and desire are neither shameful nor sinful. They are the threads that weave our existence into a tapestry of understanding. Yes, we must confront our missteps, but can we not also celebrate our vulnerabilities? Can we acknowledge our longing without fear of destruction?" A ripple moved through the crowd, eyes darting as they exchanged whispers with one another. The pulse of uncertainty vibrated throughout the square, and many shifted uncomfortably at the notion that perhaps, just perhaps, they had been wrong to conceal their truths. As her fervor grew, Miriam could sense the hesitant flicker of hope amongst them. What if our redemption lies not in hiding our humanity but in embracing it? Reflecting upon our love, our losses, and our desires could pave the way for true repentance, one born out of understanding rather than fear. She paused, letting her words hang in the air, and a silence fell over the villagers. It was palpable, electric, the tension infused with both fear and an awakening possibility. But in that moment of revelation, Miriam pondered quietly, was embracing their complexities truly the path to salvation, or would it ignite a fire they could not control? As the echoes of her voice faded, she looked out into the sea of faces, yearning for connection and understanding, yet wrestling with the smallest flicker of doubt. Can a community truly rise from the ashes of its own truths, or would they only find deeper division? As the last echoes of Miriam's words faded into the dusk, a silence enveloped the square, pressing in on every heart. In their stillness, a myriad of emotions danced just below the surface: fear, curiosity, and an awakening realization that the world they inhabited was not as simple as their tradition suggested. It was as if she had cast a stone into a dormant pond, the ripples extending outward in waves of unease. Some villagers turned their backs, shielding themselves from the raw truth that Miriam had dared to voice. Others, however, leaned in, their faces betraying the stirrings of newfound hope mingled with apprehension. Miriam's chest swelled, a conflicting amalgam of pride and trepidation. She had voiced what many had felt but never dared to articulate, and while her heart yearned for connection, she knew that vulnerability often came at a steep price. As the crowd remained suspended in their uncertainty, Miriam searched their faces, desperate for someone to anchor her, to reflect back that they were not alone. Jethro squeezed her hand tighter, his presence a steady flame amid the doubt encompassed in that instant. "They need time, Miriam," he murmured softly, his eyes scanning the villagers who remained motionless, as though rooted to the ground by the weight of the truth unveiled. "Change is not an easy burden to bear." Just then, a voice rang out from the outer fringes of the crowd. It belonged to Esther, an elder known for her unwavering commitment to tradition. "What you propose challenges the very fabric of our beliefs," she cried, her tone a tapestry of worry and indignation. "To speak of love's complexities is to invite chaos. We have thrived under the pretense of order, and now you would unravel it." Miriam's breath caught, and a chill swept over her. She had known that there would be dissent, but to hear those words spoken aloud felt like a stark reminder of the steep hill they must climb. The heaviness of Esther's assertion hung between them, the doubts of the past etched into every wrinkle of her face. But beneath that weight, Miriam perceived something more: unyielding love for her people, albeit one twisted by fear. "And yet, Esther," Miriam addressed the elder with a newfound resolve, "has our order truly served us? How many have suffered in silence? How many have turned from the divine because they felt unworthy of love? Perhaps chaos is the catalyst we need to awaken the compassion slumbering within us." The tension crackled like a summer storm brewing on the horizon. A few villagers shifted uncomfortably, others exchanged conspiratorial glances, but it was difficult to gauge whether they were swayed by Miriam's fervent call or simply overwhelmed by the charge she had set into motion. Esther's eyes narrowed, and the scrutiny she cast upon Miriam was intense. "That if we open this door," Esther challenged, "we may lose control over the very essence that keeps us united. The interwoven threads of our community are delicate. We risk tearing them apart." Miriam felt the stakes rise higher, her commitment tested by the reality of the path ahead. "Perhaps, Esther, it is not destruction that awaits us but a rebirth. To confront our truths together, while daunting, could weave our spirits with threads of understanding that withstand the test of time." The villagers listened, each soul wrestling with the revelations that lingered between clarity and chaos. Some shoulders slumped with resignation, while others appeared to find pieces of themselves in Miriam's words. Could it be that their fears were greater than the sin of their humanity? Just as the murmurs of dissension began to quiet, a figure emerged from the rear of the crowd, shrouded in shadows. It was Elisha, a younger villager whose past was marred by unrecognized mistakes and unfulfilled aspirations. His voice, though shaky, carried a weight seasoned by experience. "I once thought I was beyond redemption," he stated, his eyes shimmering with vulnerability. "But can we not seek forgiveness not only from the divine but from each other?" The collective breath of the villagers hung in the air. A tenuous pause swelling with possibility. In that moment, Miriam perceived a shift, a subtle stirring of hearts yearning for forgiveness and yearning for connection. Yet with every flicker of hope illuminated, she could feel the fraying threads of tradition tugging ferociously against the emerging light. Jethro turned to Miriam, his expression a mixture of worry and admiration. "What will come of this, then? If they begin to embrace their truths, how do we guide them through the pain?" Miriam gazed into the uncertain abyss of their future, the truth weighing heavily upon her. "Love, like the finest fabric, required both delicate handling and fierce resolve. Perhaps the journey ahead is not ours to craft but something we will discover together, piece by piece. But as we take those steps, we must ask ourselves, will the unraveling bring us closer to the divine, or will it expose us to a darkness we have yet to comprehend? As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the gathering, Miriam felt the weight of the moment settle upon her. There was an electricity in the air, a shifting tide that signaled not just a crossing of words but an entire community on the brink of transformation. Yet, amid the flickering hope, doubts simmered beneath the surface. Could they truly bear the truths that lay dormant within their hearts? The silence that hung heavy over the crowd abruptly fractured as more voices emerged. The fisherman Levi, a man known for his laughter that rang like bells even in the harshest seasons, raised his hand. "I have spent my life along the water, surrounded by reflections," he began thoughtfully. "But what lies beneath the surface is often murky, unseen. The very depths that nurture life also harbor decay. Are we ready to dive deep?" Miriam felt her spirit surge at Levi's words, for they encapsulated her deepest hope, that they could plunge into the depths together, navigating the darkness hand in hand. "We must brave those depths, yes," she encouraged him and the rest of the villagers. "For it is in those murky waters where understanding flourishes. Embracing our vulnerabilities is how we harbor true growth, not just as individuals, but as a community." A ripple of affirmation swept through some clusters in the crowd, but as visible as the light was, shadows still loomed. From within the throng, Rachel, a mother with children at her side, spoke up with trembling resolve. "But what if bare truths inflict harm instead of healing? I have sheltered my children from the world's cruelty and designed their lives around the safety of our traditions. If we disrupt that, how do we protect them from what lies out there?" The sincerity in her voice was palpable, drawing forth a chorus of nods. Miriam felt her heart ache, for she understood the protective instincts that resided in every mother's heart. "I hear your fear, Rachel," she replied, her voice imbued with compassion. "But by masking the world from our children, are we not denying them the opportunity to learn and grow from their own experiences? Love must also encompass the wisdom gained from facing our greatest challenges." Caught in a web of questions, the crowd began to murmur again, their unease bubbling as they grappled with the implications of such an awakening. It was Keturah, the village baker, whose presence was as warm as her freshly baked bread, who offered a calm perspective. "The world has always been fraught with challenges," she observed. "We cannot shield our children forever. Perhaps we must teach them to navigate the storms instead." A sense of solidarity began to weave among those who resonated with Keturah's sentiment. But Esther, arms crossed defiantly, aimed to tighten her grip over the dialogue. "You speak of storms as if they can be weathered with ease," she retorted. "This is not mere philosophy. It is our lives, the very lives woven into the fabric of this community. To alter our course could lead us into peril." Elisha, emboldened by Keturah's example, interjected once more. "But, Esther, wouldn't it be more perilous to ignore our truths? I have walked the path of shame, feeling unworthy of love and claim. Surrounded by those who exerted the weight of tradition above compassion, I was suffocated. What if we could change that? What if we could break this cycle?" In response, the villagers appeared torn, conflict flickered in their eyes, entangled with fleeting glimmers of understanding. Miriam felt the urgency of the moment pulse through her veins, each heartbeat echoing her desire for community and compassion. "We have all carried burdens that have shaped us," she implored. "If we can acknowledge them together, maybe we can rally against the weight of shame and learn to weave love and grace into the very fabric of our existence." As the gathering began to resonate with murmurs of reflection, Miriam stole a glance at Jethro. His brow furrowed with concern, as he appeared to contemplate the cascading worries of the community that had gathered around them. Could this truly be the moment they would dare to tear the cloth that had bound them? Just then, shadows stretched longer still as the sun succumbed to the horizon's embrace. The first stars began to flicker to life, a sacred reminder of the light that could emerge from darkness, a promise nestled within the chaos. Perhaps this was the divine's way of beckoning them towards the unknown. Reflecting on the bittersweet nature of their gathering, Miriam thought of the night that lay ahead. Would their truths lead them to communion or to discord? As the final rays of light evaporated from the sky, she felt the weight of unspoken questions press heavily upon her heart. What sacrifices must be made in the name of love, and how far were they willing to journey into the unknown to embrace their truest selves? As darkness enveloped the village, the flickering firelight cast playful shadows on the faces of those gathered. The night air buzzed with an apprehensive energy, an unspoken agreement that the revelations laid bare would alter the course of their lives forever. Miriam, still standing at the forefront, sensed both clarity and confusion mingling in the air, an intoxicating and frightening concoction. "Let us share our stories under this starlit tapestry," she urged, her voice trembling yet firm. "For it is within our narratives that we might unearth the roots of our fears and dreams." The villagers exchanged glances, unsure how to begin, caught between the exhilaration of honesty and the trepidation of unveiling their souls. Then, a voice broke through the silence. Mordecai, the elder and storyteller, whose honor in the village was overshadowed only by the depth of his wisdom. "I have seen many seasons come and go," he began, his voice deep and resonant like the rolling tides. "In my youth, I cherished love without understanding, indulging in passions that beckoned forbidden paths. The consequences were heavy. I lost friendships, and for many years, I strayed from the path I knew to be just." Miriam's heart ached at the hint of sorrow in Mordecai's reminiscence, and she felt a ripple of understanding among the villagers. They nodded, some clutching their loved ones, as they recognized the familiar taste of remorse entwined in their own lives. "That it is through loss that I began to understand the interplay of love and responsibility," Mordecai continued, his eye glimmering with unforgotten tears. "I found peace not in adherence to tradition alone, but in the melding of passion with commitment. The true weight of love drawn from the well of sacrifice can illuminate paths untraveled." Rachel and Esther exchanged hesitant glances, for trembling beneath their resolve was a flicker of recognition. Could vulnerability also unveil an avenue to their own truths? Encouraged by Mordecai's spring of honesty, Levi, the fisherman, stepped forward again. "I too have known the tides of temptation. The whispers of the heart often misguided my oars," he admitted, his gaze steady yet vulnerable. "I feared that yielding to desire may capsize my relationships. In sharing my love carelessly, I ended up tearing bonds that meant the most to me. For in that fleeting pleasure, I neglected the sacred essence of connection." A murmur spread through the crowd as others began to ponder their own experiences. Jethro shifted uneasily, still wrestling with his own inner turbulence. Miriam empathized deeply with the struggle she saw etched upon his brow, for his silence echoed a different story, one weighed down by fear of the uncertain and the stigma of admitting past mistakes. "That in a moment of quiet reflection, Keturah raised her voice once more, gentle yet firm. "There is a path we can pave together if we are willing to hold one another in our fragility," she offered. "Sharing our truths will nurture the roots of healing in our community. But we must also confront the ways we sever the strands that bind us. Perhaps we have been so preoccupied with our faults that we forgot the beauty of grace." With newfound courage, Elisha spoke next. "Is it not through our trials that we reflect the divine? Imperfection speaks to our humanity, but we have the choice to rise above it or weave a new narrative born from authenticity and compassion, relishing in the light that can emerge from our darkest hours." Miriam felt vibrations of reverence ripple through the gathering, a collective awakening towards unseen possibilities. Yet she remained painfully aware that amid their shared stories, shadows of bitterness and fear still lingered, echoes of separation stark against the threads of unity they hoped to weave. As the stars twinkled overhead, resembling scattered promises of hope, Miriam wondered how the brave confessions shared would activate a genuine transformation. Would the act of unveiling their truths lead to a blossoming of compassion, or would it open wounds from which they could not recover? In the midst of the night's chill, she asked herself, how does one navigate the delicate dance between vulnerability and the community's collective strength without plunging into chaos? And as they sat lingering in the fragile night, a deeper question crept into her heart: what walls do we build to shield ourselves from love, and at what cost do we ultimately guard our hearts? As dawn's first light began to pierce the horizon, the villagers felt the quiet apprehension of a new day. The flickering embers of the previous night's fire now smoldered, yet the intensity of their shared truths lingered like an echo haunting the corners of their hearts. Miriam, still reflecting on the revelations, looked around and saw faces marked not only by the weight of their confessions but also by a softening gaze, an unspoken pact beginning to form between them. Levi, undeniably burdened yet emboldened from last night's storytelling, was the first to break the morning silence. In the calm of this new day, I find myself questioning my choices, the paths I shunned due to fear. How many blessings have eluded me because I turned away from love and intimacy? Am I too late to seek the restoration of what was lost? His voice cracked, revealing the emotional toll his introspection had wrought. Mordecai, who had listened intently, nodded with understanding. Every sunrise brings forth a chance to begin anew. The question is not whether we have made mistakes, but how we embrace our past to shape our future. Can we forgive ourselves enough to extend that grace towards others? The morning sun bathed the village in golden light as Keturah stepped forward once more. Forgiveness, yes, it may be the key. Yet, we often find ourselves tangled in guilt, holding on to the weights that were never meant to bind us. How do we learn to release our burdens while still honoring the pain we've felt? Esther, with a hand over her heart, added timidly, what if the very act of sharing our scars allows others to recognize their own? We've also witnessed love harm deeply, and it can feel easier to retreat into the shadows than to risk the light. But what if we spoke not only of our failures but also of the grace that came from them? Intrigued by this idea, Miriam felt the circle of connection deepen. The words spun a web of vulnerability that seemed to draw them closer and perhaps could shield them as well. With softness, she asked the group, if we are to cast aside our fears and be a community defined by love's grace, how do we create a safe space where the truth behind intimate bonds can thrive rather than falter? Jethro, still wrestling with his internal storms, finally found his voice. It is a matter of trust. We must forge bonds that withstand storms through openness, yet how do we guard against betrayal while still allowing our hearts to be free? Alicia, sensing the palpable tension, responded, are we not all the wanderers seeking understanding within this intricate dance of relationships? Could it be that navigating love requires not only our willingness to embrace vulnerability but also a commitment to nurture those sacred ties that keep us anchored? Just then, a gentle breeze stirred, as if nature itself was harmonizing with their reflections. Miriam looked toward the skies, pondering the weight of the questions posed. In our quest for intimacy, can we courageously confront the fears of rejection that hold us captive? What if the exploration of premarital connections, often labeled as wrong, could unveil deeper truths about our spiritual journeys? As they sat together in contemplative silence, a sense of anticipation filled the air, threading together their insecurities with the possibility of hope. Miriam recalled her own struggles with intimacy and the barriers built not just from pain but also from the fear of losing herself in another. In this moment, she realized the path forward was more complex than she had anticipated. How do we reconcile the longing for connection with our fears, creating an understanding that respects both love and responsibility? Caught in a cascade of thoughts, the villagers continued to ponder the challenges that lay ahead. With dawn breaking through their uncertainties, the unresolved tension of their hearts hung like dew upon the morning grass, echoing the mystery of their collective journey yet to unfold. As the sun climbed higher, spilling warmth across the village, the air vibrated with an unarticulated tension. Each villager carried the silent weight of truths discussed and the burden of the questions that lingered. The cobblestone path that wound through the heart of their community seemed to pulse with the echoes of their shared revelations. Miriam felt the heavy stillness gathering around Thema's sacred pause before a deeper unveiling. With a determined heart, she spoke again, what if our fears are not merely obstacles but also guides? Shadows that illuminate the hidden corners of our souls. Must we not face them, even as they hold the power to tear us apart? Levi shifted nervously, contemplating her words before adding, perhaps our struggles with intimacy, especially the fear burdened by rigid laws, signal a need for understanding rather than constriction. If tradition is meant to guide us, has it strayed from its purpose, becoming a chain instead? Keturah considered the implications of Levi's insight. We are often told to handle matters of the heart with care. But have we ever thought that it is precisely through exploring these matters like the wandering of a prodigal that we may discover richer truths? Could our very struggles deepen our understanding of grace? Mordecai leaned forward, eyes glinting with curiosity. Does this dive into intimacy not reflect the divine itself? The stories tell of love given freely, of hearts woven together in trust. What if premarital bonds mirror our approach to the divine, raising questions of faith, acceptance, and redemption? A thoughtful quiet settled over them until Esther broke the silence, her voice trembling. Yet, how do we temper such exploration with caution? Love can usher joy but also grief. Are we ready to embrace the possibility of heartbreak as part of this journey? Can we learn to see our scars as a testament to love, rather than judgment against it? The group exchanged glances, their expressions a mosaic of hope and trepidation. Jethro, still wrestling with his doubts, asked, "Could we gather our experiences good and bad like stones along a path? Each step a valuable lesson. If intimacy is meant to be transformative, mustn't we be vulnerable enough to allow it to reshape us?" Elisha pondered aloud, his brows knitted in contemplation. What if we approach our hearts as gardens? To produce abundant fruit, we must embrace the seasons of growth and decay. Each relationship, whether it flourishes or withers, offers insights that draw us closer to our essence. Yet, how do we tend these gardens without fear of the thorns? Miriam, inspired by Elisha's metaphor, ventured further into the uncertainty. As we delve deeper, how do we cultivate an openness to experience life's interplay? Can we acknowledge the unseen forces at work in our hearts, revealing desires that connect us to one another and to the divine? Just then, a bird, lost in its lively song, flitted overhead, and the villagers turned their faces upward, catching a fleeting glimpse of a reality larger than themselves. The sound trailed off into silence, leaving them suspended in reflection. Miriam's thoughts turned inward, feeling the call of transformation wrapped within their intricate connections. If we dare to explore the landscape of our hearts, how can we discern which connections are rooted in love and which are merely echoes of our fears? Are we prepared to step into the light and confront what has long been hidden? With that question lingering, the villagers felt the weight of possibility and uncertainty coalesce into something tangible. Their hearts, now opened yet afraid, danced on the precipice of a revelation that remained just out of reach. The morning air, thick with anticipation, whispered its secrets, leaving them grasping for understanding, their journey still unfolding in the shadow of the unknown. As the morning glow grew bolder, saturating the village with soft light, a palpable transformation unfurled among the gathered souls. The vibrations of last night's heartfelt discourse left traces of awareness hovering in the air, like a golden thread interwoven into the very fabric of their community. They had begun to peel back the layers of their shared experiences: love, loss, fear, and truth. Miriam felt a stirring deep within as she observed the deliberate way her fellow villagers engaged with one another. Each exchange, once laced with tension, now carried the weight of understanding. Conversations sparked anew, light illuminating darkened corners of their hearts. The hesitance that had once suffocated them now breathed life into their resolve. Mordecai took a step forward, invigorated by the shift resonating around him. "It seems we stand at a crossroads," he declared, his voice steady and rich with sincerity. "We can no longer hide behind the walls of tradition alone, but we must also harness them to protect and nurture the love we seek." His gaze swept the assembly, capturing the myriad expressions of hope and contemplation. "If we are to embark on this journey together, we must commit to cultivating a community defined by honesty, forgiveness, and above all, love." The villagers nodded, sensing a tide of change. Esther, feeling the wave of camaraderie ripple through her, hesitated before speaking up again, voice quavering yet purposeful. "While we grapple with the complexities of love and desire, it is crucial we forge a path grounded in empathy and respect. If intimacy reveals our vulnerabilities, let us also create a sanctuary where both our joys and sorrows can coexist without judgment." Rachel, emboldened by the call for unity, added, "Let us not fear the scars we carry. Each mark tells a story of resilience and redemption, shaping our paths towards deeper understanding." She locked eyes with her children, a fierce determination igniting within her. "I wish for them to know the power of connection and the strength that comes from facing our truths together." Miriam's heart swelled as she witnessed the vibrant tapestry of voices weaving together, banners of vulnerability unfurling now instead of hiding from it. "It is love that binds us," she urged, emboldened by their spirit. "A love that is not merely romantic, but encompasses our family, community, and the divine. Love is the thread that must not fray, for through it, we illuminate the darkest of our fears. Levi, his voice stronger from the swell of support around him, chimed in, the fears we carry may have once kept us in chains, but here we are given a chance to define what love means for us all. We may stumble and fall, but the chance to rise again in kindred spirit guides our steps. A low murmur grew, cascading across their assembly, hearts igniting in shared recognition. The villagers began to reflect on their own relationships, the bonds they had formed, and the ones they had forfeited due to fear. Each felt called to contribute to this burgeoning conversation. It was Alicia who spoke next, recalling the words of wisdom shared the previous night. We have all witnessed the costs of silence and avoidance. If intimacy is a tapestry woven from our experiences, let us use our differences, our scars, and our love to create something stunning. Can we uplift one another as we cultivate our gardens of experience? With renewed vigor, the villagers rallied, a collective heartbeat thrumming in harmony as they turned toward the future. As they shared their thoughts and experiences, hearts began to open further, revealing layers of connectedness they had never known before. Each story shared became a stepping stone toward forging a resilient bond of understanding amid their fears. Miriam surveyed the vibrant exchanges, a warmth pooling within her. This was transformation, an awakening of the spirit that called each of them to step into love's embrace without fear. It wasn't about absolving themselves of the past, instead, it was about embracing it all, the joy, pain, desire, and grace. They were rebuilding the walls of their community, stronger, more loving, more attuned to the divine heartbeat within each of them. With every shared story, they laid the foundation for the future, one strengthened by the wisdom of their elders and the careless laughter of their children. Together, they recognized that embracing their complexities allowed them to reconcile with the divine's nature itself, the blending of love and grit, strength and fragility. As the sun reached its zenith, illuminating their gathering with radiant warmth, Miriam felt an overwhelming sense of purpose. It is time, she declared, her voice ringing clear. Today, we stand united not only as individuals carrying burdens, but as a vibrant community willing to grasp love in all its forms. May we honor our narratives while cultivating our paths together, reminding one another that we are never truly alone on this journey. A joyous cheer erupted among the villagers, their voices melding into a singular echo, a symphony of renewal. At that moment, they were not just a village bound by tradition, but one anchored in love's endless potential. And beneath the watchful gaze of the heavens, something magnificent began to unfold in their hearts, a transformation propelled by a commitment to honesty, understanding, and a deeper connection to the divine. As the sun cast long shadows upon the cobblestones of their village, Miriam looked around, the resolve of her people igniting a force greater than any single spark. This was the power of love reclaiming what silence had tried to steal. And as they each embraced their truths, they laid the stones for a path leading to a future built not on fear or shame, but on the vibrant honesty and warmth of a community reborn in grace. With hearts wide open, they ventured forth into the unknown, hand in hand casting away the shadows of secrecy, illuminating the way with every heart-laid truth and every shared story. For love, they realized, was the miracle they had hoped for all along, lighting their path to the divine, in whom they too could find their identity and redemption.